Hello and welcome to the next episode of Leather and Willow. We have Dr. Srinivas joining us again today. Thank you, Srinivas, for joining us. Aashrit is up and about. We nearly didn't have Aashrit with us for this episode because he slept very late as the match went all the way, to the last over last night, CSK versus Mumbai. Who am I kidding? CSK was very kind and considerate on all the aged fans of theirs. They let the match get over in under 10, 12 overs. And at 10:45, most of us hit the bed, right? Okay, so this episode is about the first team that is out of contention for the playoffs and the one team that has never been out of the playoffs in all the seasons that they have played. Yes, I know that when you do a post-mortem, it's always easier to, it's a much wiser thing to do a post-mortem because you can find all the faults, all the things that have not gone right in hindsight. But really, what did go wrong with CSK? I request Srinivas to take the lead today because he has all. I'm dressed in a CSK jersey because I'm here not to find fault with them. I'm not one of those aggrieved fans who has suddenly found that all is not well with CSK. I believe that this is just one season that has gone wrong. It is inevitable for any team and definitely for an aged team because CSK having a lot of players on the wrong side of 40s, I should say, not even 30s. It was inevitable because there were a lot of questions over the composition of the squad. Aashrit's patriotism for CSK is visible right behind him, and I'm sure he's behind CSK too. Srini, as somebody who has always been a vocal critic of CSK, and I'm not saying that in a bad way, and also as someone who has published with ESPNCricinfo, Love to Hate. In the Love to Hate series, he has written a Love to Hate article on the Chennai Super Kings. Srini, over to you.
Well, that's not the kind of thing that you say, to introduce someone. I hope I don't get death threats for it. And just to set the record straight, that article I haven't sent to Cricinfo. I just made a pitch for it. But I think the two things off the top of my head that haven't worked for CSK, one is something you mentioned in the preview discussion we had before going in. I think the injuries of Dwayne Bravo and Rayudu in the middle of the tournament, Bravo later, Rayudu earlier, at the time when they were just beginning to peak, it was sort of a stop to that initial momentum, right? Initial momentum is important, whatever experts argue about it. And second, I think, is something everybody has talked about, the fact that their bowling attack is Chepauk friendly, right? So if you were playing this in India, you can actually say Chennai would easily win 6 games or 5 out of 7. So they probably need to win just 2 more games to have a realistic shot at a playoffs. But I don't think their bowling attack has worked, and their batting, as I said, has been hamstrung by Rayudu's inopportune injury. And of course, Bravo's unavailability at the death has weakened the bowling even further. Those are my 2 major points. Yeah.
Especially talking about how they would have had 5 or 6 wins in Chepauk. In that context, I just want to say that in 2018, when they won the cup, 2 times they had a run of 3 wins at a stretch, and in 2019 they had 1 run of hat-trick wins, and 1 time they had a 4-game streak of wins. Now in 2020. The tables have reversed. Twice they have had a run of 3 losses, a hat-trick of losses 2 times. And every time they won, the very fact that they were not able to win the next game itself right after, it's a combination of reasons. One could have been the loss of Rayudu or Bravo not being able to come into the team. And the other thing is that it was either the bowling that was firing or it was the batting that was clicking. So yes, the fact that they were not able to win successive games, you don't go too far in a tournament like the IPL when you're not able to win two games on the trot, right? Now, talking about MS Dhoni, by the end of August, everybody was all set to enjoy his penultimate or his final IPL. With MSD, you never know. And a few weeks pass and everyone's training their guns on him and his strategies. And as far as his strategies go, what's the big fuss? Because they've always been unpredictable, right? So why are they under fire now?
Aashrit, do you want to take that or should I?
It's just that I feel it's, you have the recency effect where everybody focuses on what's going on in the present and they forget everything that has gone well in the past in just a second. You take other teams like no other team has ever reached the playoff in every season that they've played in. Like for example, if you're an RCB fan, I mean, hats off to RCB fans because this season I really feel what they've been feeling every single season before this. So, but coming back to the question, it's really that MS Dhoni had built his team, his core team, based on the Chepak pitch again, like we mentioned. And but then when everything shifts, like when you go in, if you've read anything about an army or about a war, when you go into a war, you strategize, you do a recce of the place, and you build your troops, you take your equipment based on the place you're going to war for and based on your opponents. But then suddenly, when the battlefield changes, the ammunition you had before may not work in the new battlefield. So that is the situation that has happened this year, and you just can't fault CSK for it as well. Maybe you can raise a hue and cry over it, but then what is done, really.
But Aashrit, there still isn't an answer when you talk about the strategies. Now, I'm trying to be as neutral as I can. There really isn't a reason why you can defend why Tahir wasn't played till yesterday, right? Somebody who had 26 wickets last season. He was the purple cap holder last season, and he did come off good form from the CPL. And now you put all that behind and you bench him. Even when you, of course, when Bravo didn't play the first few games, and that at that point of time they were trying a fast bowler and not Tahir. But yeah, it's a very difficult call. And coming back, the fact that they don't have enough reserve batsmen has hit them, no doubt about it, right? If you didn't have to play Faf and Watson at the top, and if you did have Raina at one down, you could have dropped one of the two and had Raidu open with the other. So yes, the bench strength has let them down. Srini?
It's not just. I don't think it's just the bench strength. I think the batting in general has let them down. I read a piece which said that both in the power play as well as the end overs, CSK figures amongst one of the worst teams in this competition. So this so-called lack of intent with which we generally tease the current Indian captain was what was missing with the Chennai team. And I think Dhoni even spoke about it. And that, I think, has to be laid at the door of someone like Watson, because you expect Watson to sort of go big. And for whatever reason, that hasn't happened. He has scored a couple of half centuries, but with the advent of things like smart stats, you realize that it's not how many runs you score, but how quickly you score them that sort of matters. The only people that have, I think, batted to the trend are Faf du Plessis. Whenever he has batted and batted well, he's done okay. And Rayudu, either side of his injury, he's done okay. I'm not saying he's done great. So, and Jadeja, of course, again, someone that I don't terribly enjoy seeing bat or bowl, but he has done well in his limited opportunities with the bat. But so you're looking at 7 batsmen, right? Only 3 of them sort of cut it in a T20 tournament of this kind. You're obviously going to end up a few runs short. And when you bat it...
Just to add to that, the 2 other batsmen in the lineup who have figured in most games, Jadhav has scored 62 runs in 8 games, and Dhoni himself has scored only 180 runs in 11 games. Right? So, definitely when the Indian batsmen in the team don't step up, I think the best strategy is to have foreigners for specific roles, which CSK has tried, but they've had very limited foreign options for specific roles, right? So the rest of the heavyweight lifting has to be done by the Indian players, and the 3 Indian reserve batsmen, the Indian batsmen they tried, also didn't have great returns. In that, Vijay has made 32 runs in 3 games. Rituraj has made 5 runs in 3 games. And Jagadish, of course, I think it would be too harsh to criticize him. He's made 33 in 2 games, of which he scored a duck in 1 and 33 in the other. And yeah, he didn't really get a good run even after he made that impressive 33. But yes, the Indian batsmen have been a big problem for CSK.
Also, one more thing that really perplexes me is that, fine, the team wants to go with a core and retain the core and play the same 11 and all that, fine. But then when you know at the start of the season that Suresh Raina has pulled out and you have Harbhajan Singh who's also not making it, you're already downsizing your squad by 2 people. But then the team doesn't go for replacements. There were so many rumors. I mean, even in the start of our series, we had a rumor that Yusuf Pathan was going to join CSK. I mean, even just a replacement would have been better than no replacement, because then you'll at least have options to choose from, right?
See, that's exactly the kind of thing that makes me wonder, again, as a very neutral person, as to whether Dhoni can be a little too bullheaded at times. I mean, we know how cool he is. We know how he's sort of equanimous in both victory and defeat, which you do require of a leader. But sometimes you sort of get the impression with him that he, I mean, his instinct of trust in people outweighs everything else. And we've seen that in the past. Rohit Sharma enjoyed over 100 games under his captaincy before he flowered, right? And he did. Let's acknowledge that. And we can talk about others, smaller instances like giving Joginder Sharma that last epic over in the T20 World Cup and multiple other instances. But sometimes I feel even on the field, Dhoni lacks a plan B. And maybe when it comes to the composition of the squad as well, perhaps his distaste for a plan B sort of, manifested. Granted that there were, as I said, other constraints, two major players pulling out, two great players, going through injuries in the middle of the tournament. So in many ways, it was a perfect storm for CSK, right? They didn't have a great start to the tournament in terms of team composition. They couldn't play their best players all through the tournament. And the fact that some of their older players, though proven performers, didn't quite come to the party when they sort of came. And as you said, and Siddharth's point about Indian batsmen, I would take it to Indian players in general. Look, you can field only 4 foreign players. So you need the other 7, 5 of the other 7 to come good at various points in the tournament. That hasn't happened.
Talking about Indian bowlers, now that we spoke about the Indian batsmen, Jadeja has picked up 4 wickets in 11 games. It's not one of those things that you would normally expect from Jadeja. And we definitely didn't expect this from the kind of wickets that we thought that the UAE would offer. We thought the spinners would come good, and some of them have. If you look at the way Yuzvendra Chahal has bowled, the way Ravi Bishnoi has bowled, the way Rashid Khan has bowled, the way Rahul Chahar has bowled, it's not that the spinners have not had assist. The grounds have been small, the scores have been big, but there have also been challenges for the batsmen to adapt to even the same ground. Different pitches seem to play differently, right? And there have been changes from the first innings to the second innings as well. Even Dhoni himself has admitted that. He said when we expected dew, there has not been dew. When we batted, the pitch slowed up, and in the second innings, the team chased it down effortlessly. Now you look at the 3 Indian bowlers. I just want to name 3 of them. Jadeja has picked up 4 wickets in 11 games. Chawla has picked 6 in 7 games. Karan has picked 4 in 4 games. These are not. There's a pattern that shows that they have not been striking through the innings. At different points of the innings, when you want your bowlers to have an impact, that hasn't come through. And there are 3 Indian bowlers who didn't get a chance to play at all. Mohammad Asif, Sai Kishore, and Monu Singh. They haven't played at all, so there's not much to say about that. Even Josh Hazelwood, he's played 3 games and he's got 1 wicket to show for that. It's like almost the equivalent of Rituraj, who's played 3 games and taken 5 runs. So you think that, of course, I know that it's very easy to just throw a number, and the number may not say the whole story of what sort of an impact that bowler might have had. He might have bowled 4 good overs and not given away anything, and just had 1 wicket to show for it. But that's not been the case either. But then I think it's just. I'm sorry. I know I'm going on, but I think that these could be the major faults that we could leave at the door of the CSK team and the management. There are some other issues, some other points that are raised by a lot of people, which I think aren't entirely warranted. For instance, the whole spark plug question, right? Dhoni saying that I didn't find the spark in the youngsters to keep the senior players out of the team, and everybody went crazy and saying that what sort of spark did you see in Kedar Jadhav, what sort of spark did you see in Piyush Chawla and things like that, when they didn't have anything to show either. But I'm just going to throw a few names: Pratyush Singh, Ankush Bains, Ekalavya Dwivedi, Mithun Manhas, Ronit More, Imtiaz Ahmed. These are guys who have played for CSK at some point of time in the past. They've been in the squad. They've not got a game to play. They've not had a fair run, and they've been let go of. How come nobody made a big hue and cry of it then? When CSK has been winning, all these things have just been brushed under the carpet. It's just that it's not going right. I think there are too many things being said about the team, not all of which are entirely warranted, in my opinion.
In fact, even Dhoni said the same thing in his post-match presentation yesterday. today. He said, when the team is winning, nobody looks at the flaws, but then when the team starts losing, you look at 100 different reasons, and somehow you try to correlate everything to the cause of the losses, right? So we can go on and on. But then one point that is very pertinent in my mind is that even in the 2018 auction, when we went in, we've already went in with, we were called the Daddy's Army, and then a team full of old players. When you know that you are going to go 3 years, that auction strategy should be for 3 years, why do you think CSK went with such an old team?
Srini?
See, I don't know. I can't directly answer Aashrit's question, but maybe in the course of my response, it will be answered. My point is T20 being an athletic game should be at least the right combination of youth and age, right? Regardless of Chennai's successes with its daddy's army, it should be, right? You can't have 5 people, 6 people on the wrong side of 30s. You're gambling. And you're gambling, especially when you're taking a tournament to another place, of course, which Dhoni could not have foreseen. I mean, nobody could have foreseen that this tournament would happen not in India, but elsewhere. So my point is, it was a disaster waiting to happen. This might seem like a very nice thing to say with the benefit of hindsight, but it always has been. I've said this to Siddharth. In the 2018 tournament, Watson came good in the finals. He didn't have a great record up till then. So, but as an analyst, as fans, when we look at a team, I think we should also look beyond wins and losses and see if a particular team can perform okay in any conditions, which is exactly what a Mumbai Indians has. Again, Mumbai Indians is not a favorite team of mine. So I don't know, which is why I keep going back to that bullheadedness. Yes, you can trust the people you have performed. Yes, you can work beyond the age limit and all that, but there has to be some data that go into it. I don't know, maybe there is, but we all know that Dhoni is not, too much into data. He prefers to go by instinct. But I think that instinct should be married at some level with data so that the other cracks which appear in the team composition can be evened out during exigencies of this kind. I don't know if I made sense. I threw a lot of big words out there, but that's my view. Yeah.
No, I just want to add this. CSK has always had some aged or near/retired players. So I don't think, and it's worked in the past. So it having worked in the past, now let me give you a few examples. Ashish Nehra, Brendan McCullum, David Hussey, Mike Hussey, Dwayne Smith, Scott Styris. David Hussey was 36 when he played for Chennai in 2014, and in 2014, somebody at the age of 36 playing is quite is an anomaly. It's not normal. And Muralidharan and Matthew Hayden were 38 when they played, and CSK won the tournament in 2010. Agreed, Shane Watson and Bravo have performed in crucial games in the past. So his persist with strategy has yielded results. But like you said, Srini, till when? How long do you persist? What if the results come when the popular phrase, the operation was a success, but I'm sorry, the patient is no more. That kind of a scenario. What's the point of Watson scoring the tournament's fastest 100 now when you're out of the tournament? I just wonder that is MSD looking at the others the way he looks at himself? Now, for instance, nobody can deny that even at the age of 36, 37, MSD was among the fastest behind the stumps. He didn't have trouble running between the wickets. But we see that, is he looking at Watson the same way? Is he going soft on Watson? Because Watson's fielding has been appalling, to say the least.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because CSK's fielding in general has come up for comment, and Watson is probably at the forefront of it because he's been the worst. I haven't watched all the games because they're not on TV.
I've seen Gale dive to stop the ball, but I've not seen Watson stop a ball.
Yes, and Watson, I think, has also had, if I remember, issues with his back and all that, which is why I come back to the same point, right? See, my point is not against aged players as such. You had some terrific statistics out there. Nor am I saying pick 19-year-olds, 18-year-olds, like, how a Rajasthan Royals does or a Mumbai Indians does with its scouts. My point is have a balance such that you as the think tank know that no matter where we go, we will have a reasonable team that we can field. For me, this increasingly looks like a Chepauk team. I'm sorry to say that. And again, sorry to go back to an earlier point, perhaps Jadeja didn't succeed because there was no pressure at the other end. See, Jadeja is a dart bowler, right? Someone who can succeed based on the pressure created at the other end. But there was no wicket taker at the other end. As you said, the statistics for Chawla, Karun Sharma, even Josh Hazelwood. Season can be summed up in one phrase for me. It's a perfect storm. Too many things went wrong for CSK, so it's probably terrible to have a knee-jerk reaction and try to. I mean, not all of these are holes per se, but a couple of points that we have discussed, including the age factor, is something that they will have to discuss, I think. Yeah.
Okay. I'll just take one more question. I'll throw it open to you guys to contribute. Tell me what your thoughts are. Another big thing that another storm that came up was kicked up was that what is Mahendra Singh Dhoni doing? Why isn't he encouraging Tamil Nadu players? It's the Chennai Super Kings after all, and why aren't we breeding youngsters from Tamil Nadu? Now, I don't buy this argument because I don't think the Indian Premier League, though we have the franchisees based out of cities, that logic doesn't hold good because Virat Kohli plays for Bangalore, Harbhajan Singh played for us, and Ashwin went to Punjab, and now he's gone to Delhi. It doesn't work that way, right? We know that at the auctions, nobody is doing it that way. But when you're talking about, at least when you're talking about the uncapped players that are there in the squad, take the instance of Jagdishan and Sai Kishore. Now, Sai Kishore is expected to be a very good bowler in the power play. We might see him in the next couple of games if Dhoni is to be believed in what he said last night. But what about this criticism about Tamil Nadu players not being groomed by CSK?
I think when it comes to an auction like the IPL, you have 7 other teams competing for players with you. So it's not like you can just take anybody from your state, or you don't have a quota or a reservation here. In fact, CSK has had quite a few Tamil Nadu players in their ranks throughout the years. There are 16 people at the count that I have, and some of them have actually been groomed by CSK and made it into the Indian team and even made it big. Like for some names are Ashwin, of course, was completely groomed by Dhoni through CSK. Then you have Badrinath, who also came to the Indian side through CSK. Then you have Vijay Shankar, who was part of the CSK team, but he didn't really have any performances to back him. Of course, you have Lakshmipati Balaji. He wasn't groomed by CSK, but he was taken by CSK. And he's the one grooming the youngsters right now. So the argument about Tamil Nadu players, I don't know where that comes in. And of course, you need to give time. Like Jagdishan has been showing his talent. The one game that he did score, he played some very beautiful strokes, and it was good cricket to watch. You have Sai Kishore, who was the leading wicket taker in the TNPL last year. So when you have players like them, probably, but then CSK should go with them, take them forward in the next IPL seasons as well, and then see how they can groom them.
Aashrit, can you just name a few Tamil Nadu players who have played? I'm sorry, Srini. I think you were just...
No problem. Go on. Yeah.
Sure. So there was Vidyut Sivaramakrishnan, there was Palani Amarnath, there was Subramaniam Badrinath, Lakshmipati Balaji, there was Vasudeva Das, who was part of the squad but never played a game. There was Abhinav Mukund, Vijay Shankar, Sai Kishore, Jagdishan, Murli Vijay, Hemang Badani, Ravichandran Ashwin. Then there was C. Ganapati, there was Arun Karthik, and there was Yo Mahesh. So that's a lot of people.
If I counted right, I think you named about 15 people, right? So maybe
yes,
those...
Aniruddha
Shrikant as well, of course. So he opened, right? He opened the season in South, especially with Bailey, and even with Hayden, I think, when we played in South Africa, the year that the tournament was in South Africa. So I think those who ask the question, has CSK done enough for local players, should take a list of how many local players the other teams have groomed as well. It's only then it's fair that you point a finger at CSK, right?
My point is that question need not even be taken seriously, because we are looking at CSK. Go to any franchise for that matter, and you would see they probably did not play so many players belonging to that region: Rajasthan, RCB, Delhi. I mean, personally, yes, Siddharth knows my pet peeve, right? One of my pet peeves with the IPL is that it should groom regional players. But what should happen and what realistically happens are two different things, and every franchise does it. So I think to level that accusation against Dhoni or the CSK management is unfair. But as you guys have pointed out as well, there are two aspects to the question. One, the question is asked by people who are probably ignorant of the facts. And two, the question need not even be asked in a tournament like IPL, which only for namesake has city-based or region-based franchises. And that's probably where the discussion should stop on that question.
I mean, for example, take the players that CSK has groomed. One example that I can give you is Deepak Chahar. He came into the team when nobody knew who he was, and he's become a key bowler for them. He was born in Agra, and he plays for Rajasthan in the Ranji team. So why aren't people going to Delhi and saying, "Oh, you didn't pick Deepak Chahar, you didn't groom him"? Why aren't people going to Rajasthan?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
No, but then I should say that definitely a team like Hyderabad or Rajasthan Royals are far more experimental. They're willing to give chances to youngsters compared to some other teams like I would even go so far as to say even Mumbai and Chennai. I would even include Mumbai in that because Mumbai is pretty much goes with the Chennai model of having a core 7, 8. You can predict 8, 9 players in the Mumbai team on any given day, pretty much like how you can with the Chennai of yore. I'm not going to talk about Chennai Super Kings of 2020. So it's only Rajasthan and I would say Rajasthan and Hyderabad. Delhi also has done it in the past.
Yeah.
Yes, Srini, you want to say something?
That's probably the saddest part of not just the IPL, but most of these cutthroat competitive tournaments is that team owners as well as players, the coaches feel obliged to win matches, right? And as you and I know, when winning becomes the one and only imperative, giving chances to youngsters, which is one of the cited goals of the IPL, takes the back seat. That's sad, but I suppose that's for another discussion because we're in the middle of the tournament. We're talking about why CSK will not make the playoffs. But yes, that is sad that there are only 2 out of 8 teams, and DC, if you include 3, that even thinks about giving chances to someone who needs that chance, right? And let me. Exactly right. So you never know who the future Ravichandran Ashwin is going to be. The future Ravichandran Ashwin might be a kid from somewhere in North Karnataka who's picked up by a CSK scout or a scout from I don't know KKR. And so it is sad. That aspect of it is sad, but the reality is there's so much money involved in it. There's so much competition involved in it, and of course we all know how fans can be volatile as well, right? That ultimately victory becomes the bottom line, which is not how sport should be, but that's entering the terrain of morality and stuff like that. So I guess one shouldn't go too much into that territory.
I shouldn't forget to mention Kolkata as well, because they have been very brave to play few rookie Indian pacers in Shivam Mavi, in Prasidh Krishna and Kamlesh Nagarkoti. Right. Of course, KKR, let's not talk about the performances of the KKR team or these bowlers in particular, but the fact that these are not the A-grade Indian fast bowlers, but Kolkata has still been brave enough to play more than one of them in the same team. All right. So I think we've pretty much answered all the questions we set out to answer. We may not have answered it sufficiently, but we at least gave it a fair shot. So before we close, guys, I think our next episode is when we know who are the 4 teams that will be playing in the playoffs. We'll just have a quick review and say what we think, predict what we think would likely happen. But a question before that: who do you think are going to be the 4 teams that will make it the playoffs?
Aashrit, would you like to go first for that? I'm buying time.
So, as much as I would, I hate to admit it, RCB will make it to the playoffs, is what I feel. Then there's Delhi, there's Mumbai. The 4th team is really, the teams seem to be fighting hard to not make the 4th spot, but I think somehow Kolkata will manage to get into the 4th spot.
All right.
So Aashrit has mentioned Kolkata, otherwise I would have mentioned those 4. So just for sport, I will say who else is in contention. Let me go with Sunrisers, because Manish Pandey is back in form. They had a tremendous run chase against Rajasthan Royals the other day, one of my favorite teams. So I'm just going with SRH as the 4th team, but I think Aashrit will be right with Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore, and Kolkata.
Yeah, there's not much for me to say because obviously 3 teams pick themselves: RCB, Delhi, and Mumbai. With not.
And if any of those teams don't go through, then we will have an exciting review. I can tell you that.
Yeah, we will definitely will. The 4th team, I think it's very open. It looks like even Kings Punjab have a chance if things go their way.
And if
That
you are
would
a
be lovely.
hardcore CSK fan, you also have people doing calculation as to how CSK can still make the playoffs.
I think even those calculations are out of contention, Ashrit. So I think you can start pulling down those posters one by one. So yeah, I think the fourth team. I would personally like to see Sunrisers as the fourth team somehow, just sneak in, because they're a very exciting team. And Sunrisers has, of course, they've lost Bhuvaneshwar Kumar, a big blow for them, but they have the potential to knock out any of the three teams that are sitting happy at the top of the table. So if David Warner and Johnny Best are fire, I think there's little that anybody can do to stop them. So let's see. Like I said, let's come back when we know who the four teams are and do a quick review of the four teams then. Until then, thank you so much for joining us. It was a little long episode, but I think it deserved it because the fact that this is a team that nobody expected to not make it to the playoffs, and definitely not in the manner in which they've not made it to the playoffs. Therefore, we had to take your time. Thank you so much for joining, Aashrit. Thank you, Srinivas. See you guys soon.
Thank you. Yeah. See you. Bye.